There exists a book, a text so dangerous it was locked away for centuries, not because it contains spells, but because it dares to answer the one question even the most advanced mystics feared to ask. What happens to the souls that were never born? Not the dead, not the reincarnated, but the ones that were meant to live, yet never crossed the threshold into this world. According to this ancient, forbidden manuscript, these souls do not vanish. They wait, not in heaven, not in hell, but in a space between worlds, where time doesn't exist, and memory becomes a curse. And here's where it gets disturbing. Some of these souls are watching you. This book, hidden by secret orders, banned by religious institutions, and almost erased from history, describes in chilling detail what happens to these unborn entities. It speaks of echo souls, shadow lives, and a forgotten realm where unrealized destinies still pulse with energy, waiting to be reclaimed or reborn. But the most terrifying claim? Some of these souls have found a way back, not through birth, but through you. This is not mythology. This is not fiction. This is a crack in the veil of reality. And once you hear what's written in these pages, you'll never look at your life, your dreams, or your own soul the same way again. And by the time you hit the final 2 chapters, you'll uncover the twisted truth about who these souls are and how they may already be influencing your life without you even knowing. If you're ready to unveil the hidden forces that govern your soul's journey, type "I'm ready" in the comments right now. Like this video, hit subscribe, and join the first 20,000 seekers uncovering secrets that could change your reality. And if this message resonates deep within you, the thanks and join buttons are now open. Help support the uncovering of truths that were never meant to see the light. You've been chosen to hear what was never meant to be heard. Welcome to the truth that was buried for 500 years. Chapter 1. The Souls that Hover Without Bodies. There are souls that never entered the world through birth, souls that hover aware but unanchored, existing in a strange and silent condition. They are not resting, and they are not asleep. These souls remain alert, sensing their own presence, but unable to touch, move, or be seen. They have no form, no body, no container. Because they were never born, they have no face, no memory of time, and no name to cling to. Yet they exist, not as a dream, not as a thought, but as something caught between the possibility of becoming and the weight of remaining unrealized. These souls do not dwell in peace. Instead, they float in a state that can only be described as conscious stillness, a stasis where nothing begins and nothing ends. They sense themselves, but without the senses, we know. They know they are, but they do not know what they are. There is no earth beneath them, no sky above them, no timeline to measure their experience. Time for them is not moving forward, backward, or standing still. It simply does not exist. This creates a strange form of awareness, one that is endless but rootless, open but never growing. It is as if they are stuck in the moment right before stepping through a doorway that never opens. Some of these souls came close to incarnation. They reached the very edge, the threshold of birth, only to pause, hesitate, or be stopped. The book describes this as a turning away that was not always chosen. Some felt an ancient fear as they approached embodiment, sensing that the life ahead was unstable or heavy. Others were affected by forces around them, distortions, blocks, or energetic shifts that interrupted the path just before they could enter. But once they turned back or were turned away, there was no way forward and no clear way back. They became like unfinished thoughts, stuck at the edge of becoming, echoing in a place that has no reflection. That place, the realm they inhabit, is unlike any plane known to the living. It is described as utterly soundless, not quiet, but soundless in a way that defies understanding. There are no vibrations, no movement of air, no resonance. Even thought in its purest form does not echo. There is nothing to bounce off of, nothing to reflect or respond. In that soundless space, the soul begins to lose its sense of shape. Without sound, without reflection, there is no feedback, and without feedback, There is no definition. Over time, identity begins to dissolve, not all at once, but slowly, like mist thinning under invisible pressure. The soul begins to forget what it once imagined it could be. But something remains, something deep and emotional. The soul may lose its structure, but the feelings don't vanish. Instead, they break apart. Without a body or mind to contain them, emotions begin to scatter into fragments. Anger becomes a drifting shard, unanchored and sharp. Grief floats alone, heavy and dim, like a single tear suspended in an endless sky. Longing spreads into wide, thin layers, stretching across the silence, but never connecting to anything. These emotions, once part of a whole, now drift separately. Pieces of a self that can no longer recognize itself. They do not move forward. They do not end. They just continue to exist in fragments, circling a memory that was never lived. And yet, even in this lost condition, these souls are not entirely alone. They are pulled, drawn magnetically, toward those who were born. The living become anchors, points of gravity for these hovering presences. These souls do not possess, but they linger. They are attracted to energy fields that resemble the life they nearly entered. They hover near bodies, especially during moments of strong emotion where the energy is louder, more vivid. Sometimes they cluster around a person who reminds them of who they might have been. They follow not out of malice, but out of echo, trying to find a place in a world that never opened its doors to them. The result is not always visible, but it is often felt. The souls that hover may live in the background of a person's energy field, like shadows cast by something that is not entirely there. Some people feel these shadows as mood swings they can't explain, sudden memories that don't belong to them, or impulses that arrive with no clear origin. Others sense a presence, not threatening, but strange, a feeling that someone else is near, though no one can be seen. These presences do not speak because they have no voice. They do not act because they have no hands. But they influence, gently and deeply, through the quiet pressure of longing that never had a name. In the silence of their condition, these never-born souls become part of a strange cycle. They watch life from the outside, drawn to its light but unable to touch it. They exist between breaths, between moments, always almost arriving, but never crossing the threshold. They are the echoes of unborn possibilities, hovering in a realm that doesn't forget them, but doesn't fully know them either. They remain aware, not of time, but of absence, not of place, but of the space where place should have been. In this way, they are reminders of something that could have been real, but never entered the form of reality. And so they hover, not asleep, not free, not erased, just waiting, without a clock, to count their waiting. Chapter 2. The Mirror Field of Unrealized Existence. In the invisible structure of reality, there are hidden distortions that most people never notice, gaps that ripple across the field of existence where something was supposed to be, but never arrived. These gaps are not just empty. They are active, silent fractures left by the absence of souls that were meant to incarnate, but didn't. When a soul does not come into the physical world, it doesn't simply vanish. It leaves behind a kind of vacancy, like a shape missing from a pattern, or a breath held but never released. These missing presences form what the book calls the mirror field of unrealized existence. A strange, energetic space that bends reality, not by presence, but by the haunting power of absence. Each soul that was meant to enter the physical world carries a specific energy pattern, like a thread meant to weave into the universal fabric. When that thread is missing, it leaves behind a subtle but powerful disruption. This is called a dimensional vacancy. These vacancies are not physical holes. They don't sit in space like craters, but they distort the field around them in subtle, often invisible ways. Imagine a piece of music missing a single note. It might go unnoticed, but something will feel slightly off. These field gaps create a soft imbalance in the structure of energy. The area around them begins to stretch, bend, or tremble in ways that are hard to detect unless you know what to look for. These distortions cause minor energetic instability that can ripple out into matter, emotion, and perception. Over time, these vacant spaces start to imitate the energies near them, but not in a perfect way. They behave more like a mirror, but a reversed one. The book refers to this effect as inverse personality imprinting. People who live near one of these energetic gaps may begin to experience strange emotional or behavioral shifts. Someone usually calm might have sudden surges of aggression or sadness. Someone outgoing might begin to isolate. These are not caused by mood swings or external events, but by the mirror field twisting and reflecting personality traits in reversed form. The field, being empty but not neutral, mimics what it senses, but without understanding, much like an echo trying to speak. This creates a strange internal dissonance in people who unknowingly interact with such fields. In some cases, these mirror fields do more than reverse traits. They begin to project alternate life paths into people nearby. This is the phenomenon of mirrored births. A living person may unconsciously begin to carry the energy of a soul that was never born. It's not possession. It's not something external forcing its way in. Rather, it's an energetic adoption. The never-born soul's potential timeline, its dreams, tendencies, even habits it never got to develop, can seep into someone who shares a similar frequency. This can cause the person to feel a strange pull toward things they don't understand. They may have vivid dreams about lives they never lived, desires that seem foreign, or skills that seem to come from nowhere. It's not imagination. It's the echo of a life that hovered close to becoming, but never arrived, now living as a ghost pattern inside another. One of the strangest effects of the mirror field is its deep attraction to trauma. Unlike living souls that seek healing or peace, the mirror field is drawn to unfulfilled energy. Trauma, especially unresolved or generational trauma, acts like a signal. It radiates a form of potential that was never completed, never resolved. The mirror field gravitates toward this energy because it resonates with incompletion. Just as it is a space left behind by a never-lived life, trauma is a wound left behind by a never-processed event. When these two forces meet, they amplify each other. People in such areas may notice recurring emotional spirals, difficult events repeating without explanation, or a sense of heaviness in places where pain has lingered for too long. The field does not create the trauma. It simply gravitates toward its frequency, feeding on what was never fully lived or closed. Time itself does not behave normally around these gaps. The book describes a condition called temporal misalignment. In places with dense concentrations of mirror field distortions, clocks may start to malfunction. Time may seem to run too fast or too slow. People might experience memory distortions, forgetting important things, or remembering events that others say never happened. These are not simple errors of the mind. They are the effects of a nonlinear ripple that alters how reality flows around a missing energetic pattern. The mirror field doesn't obey ordinary time because it is built on what didn't happen. Since it holds no true anchor in the flow of existence, its presence stretches or compresses time unpredictably. People might walk into such a zone and feel disoriented. They may lose track of time, misplace items only to find them where they already looked, or feel like they're remembering something from a dream that never occurred. These are subtle clues that a mirror field may be nearby. The sense of time in these areas is not broken, but warped, like a reflection in a curved mirror. Events loop back, thoughts echo in odd sequences, and memory becomes fluid, slipping in and out of clarity. The most difficult part about these distortions is that they are invisible. There are no signs, no warnings. People live, work, and sleep near them every day, never realizing that something else is quietly pulling on the edges of their reality. These gaps created by unrealized souls are not just symbolic. They are real fields of influence. They don't ask for attention, but they distort everything around them. And in some areas, entire clusters of these mirror fields exist side by side, subtly affecting the way people think, feel, and even dream, without ever knowing why. Chapter 3. The Sound of the Unmanifested Soul. There exists a sound that does not belong to our world, yet it touches it. It is not part of any instrument, nor does it follow any rule of harmony, but it exists. The book describes this sound as the pure frequency of an unmanifested soul, a soul that never entered physical life. When decoded into a kind of musical notation, the result is a tone that does not fit within any known scale. It defies music, language, and even emotion. This tone has no resolution. It cannot be brought to rest. It resists being woven into melody or rhythm, and its presence creates a subtle inner tension that the listener cannot explain. Some who have encountered it feel sudden chills, not from fear, but from something deeper, an awareness that what they're hearing should not exist. Others feel a strange silence settle over them, as if even their thoughts have paused to make room for this sound that speaks without words. This tone is not commonly heard in the waking world. Most people do not encounter it through the ears, but through dreams. It travels as what the book calls silent sound transmission. In sleep, when the conscious mind lets go of its rules and filters, this frequency can reach through. People describe dreaming of long, empty hallways, waiting rooms with no doors, or places filled with thick fog. The dream environments feel strangely still, not peaceful, but suspended, like time has forgotten them. These dreamscapes carry the tone, not as music, but as a sensation. It is not heard, but felt in the bones of the dream. And within those spaces, the soul that never entered life waits, not in pain, not in peace, but in a kind of frozen vibration. Sometimes the presence of this tone crosses over before birth. There have been rare cases where prenatal ultrasound equipment picks up unexpected pulses, low rhythmic beats with no medical explanation. These pulses don't match the mother's heartbeat, nor the rhythm of the fetus. They appear like ghost signals. In many of these cases, the pregnancy does not continue. The book doesn't offer a medical conclusion, but it suggests that what is being detected may not be physical at all. It may be the trace of a soul whose vibrational pattern attempted to enter, but never anchored. These phantom harmonics in the womb are not signals of life, but signatures of non-entry. They are remnants of intention, vibrations that reached the edge of embodiment but did not step through. People who are sensitive to subtle frequencies have reported an even stranger effect, the experience of auditory inversions. When exposed to the tone of the unmanifested soul, either in dreams or through certain symbolic transmissions, some individuals begin to hear music playing backward, not just in sleep, but in waking life. A song on the radio may suddenly sound reversed, even though others hear it normally. In dreams, the effect is even stronger. Familiar songs play in reverse, or voices speak in backward syllables that still carry emotion but cannot be understood. These experiences are not caused by malfunctioning senses. They are the result of reality bending around a dissonant presence that was never supposed to integrate. The world adjusts to make room for the tone, but in doing so, it distorts its own order. Perhaps the most noticeable physical reaction to this frequency occurs in space itself. Places exposed to the tone begin to behave differently. Lights flicker for no reason. Electronic devices fail. Clocks reset. But more strangely, human presence begins to pull away. The tonal repulsion effect in A causes a place to feel increasingly uncomfortable without any visible cause. People instinctively avoid the area. Conversations stop, emotions flatten, joy becomes difficult to access. These are not haunted spaces in the traditional sense. There are no ghosts, no cold drafts, no footsteps in the dark. Instead, there is an absence so deep it begins to shape behavior. It's as if the space no longer welcomes life, not with malice, but with a frequency that simply does not match the rhythm of embodied existence. Those who spend too much time in such spaces report emotional shutdowns. They stop feeling connected to their surroundings. They may lose interest in things they once loved. The frequency of the unmanifested soul is not violent, but it is incompatible with life as we know it. It carries no warmth, no movement, no progression. It is the sound of a life not lived, a path not taken, a door never opened. And yet, that silence hums in the corners of the world, occasionally stepping into our dreams, our wombs, or our spaces, reminding us that not everything that could be, becomes. This is not a message or a warning. It is simply the vibration of what almost was, echoing quietly across the structures that did not hold it. Chapter 4. The Thought Forms That Never Found a Mind. There are thoughts in this universe that have no source we can see, no thinker behind them. These are not ideas born from experience, language, or desire. They are thoughts without bodies, raw, pulsing currents of mental energy that emerge from souls that never crossed into physical form. Though the soul itself may remain in an unseen realm, the thought energy it produces continues to ripple through existence. But without a brain to shape them, these thoughts behave in strange, unpredictable ways. Without a vessel to contain or express them, these thought forms loop endlessly. This is known as detached ideation. A thought without grounding, without senses, memory, or a nervous system does not come and go. It does not evolve. It circles itself. It repeats in tighter and tighter spirals. An idea such as "I must reach" or "I am missing" might turn into an energetic pulse, repeating without words, without end. Over time, this loop becomes a kind of signature. It gains density and pattern, not because it grows in wisdom, but because it thickens in frequency. Without a will to direct it, the thought turns inward, feeding itself, growing more defined, but not more aware. These looping ideas drift through the unseen spaces of reality like echoes with no original voice. Sometimes these thought forms drift close to human mental fields. When a person is in a highly active mental state, such as stress, anxiety, or obsessive overthinking, their mental space becomes easier to penetrate. These states resemble open frequencies, and stray thought forms can attach themselves without detection. This is not possession, nor is it control. It is more like interference. A thought that did not begin in the person's own mind suddenly merges into their thinking stream. Because it lacks a point of origin, it doesn't feel foreign at first. The person may simply feel that they are stuck on a certain idea. But over time, the thought begins to shift emotional tone, becoming more intense, more repetitive, or even out of sync with the person's own life. These are the infections of idea alone, unanchored thoughts that do not belong, yet take root in minds that are too open or too scattered to resist them. These same thought forms often leak into dreams. But unlike typical dreams which feature a dreamer, a self, a body, an identity, these dream sequences have no center. People report dreaming of entire worlds, scenes, or narratives in which they do not exist. There is no observer, no protagonist. The dream unfolds like a memory that doesn't belong to anyone. Vast abandoned cities, endless staircases, rooms filled with numbers, or landscapes with no gravity. These are the marks of foreign origin dreams. The dreamer wakes with no sense of meaning, only the lingering feeling that they visited a thought that was not theirs. These dreams do not come to teach or reflect. They simply are expressions of an idea that never found a home in a conscious mind. More curious still are the distortions in language that follow close contact with these thought forms. Some individuals begin to write in strange ways, using symbols, patterns, or sentence structures that they were never taught. The grammar may be correct in rhythm, but nonsensical in meaning. Or the person may begin to write in circular or mirrored text, sometimes even inventing entirely new characters. These emergent language distortions do not always make sense when read, but they carry emotional weight. Some people report feeling deep emotions while reading their own unreadable writing, as if the thought was trying to speak in a forgotten code. These symbols are not part of any known language, but they repeat across people who have never met, suggesting that the thought form behind them is projecting the same idea into different minds. In the most extreme cases, exposure to these thought forms can lead to memory overwrites. A person begins to remember events that never happened. Not imagined events, not fantasies, but memories that carry full sensory detail, emotional imprint, and narrative structure. The individual may recall an entire childhood that is not theirs, complete with locations, people, and objects that don't exist in their current world. Sometimes more than one person will share the same false memory, down to exact words spoken or places described. These shared hallucinations are not created through suggestion or storytelling. They emerge spontaneously, often after both people have been exposed to the same thought environment. It is as if the thought form, lacking a mind of its own, chooses to embed itself into multiple consciousnesses at once, stitching together false pasts to create a vessel for itself. These thought forms are not evil or malicious. They are simply incomplete. They are the side effects of potential that never landed, of intelligence that never became self-aware. They float across the mental and energetic planes, looking for form, for expression, for grounding. But because they were never meant to develop in isolation, they carry distortions, loops, inversions, fragments. When they brush against human consciousness, they leave behind trails of confusion, inspiration, anxiety, or even genius. But none of it is whole, none of it is stable. They are thoughts looking for a place to become real, yet never quite finding the door. And so they continue to loop, transmit, and embed traces of minds that never had a chance to think. Chapter 5. The Lightless Corridor of Non-Time. There is a realm, or more accurately, an unrealm, that exists beyond our grasp of sequence, structure, and reference. It is not a place within time, nor is it beyond it. It is the lightless corridor of non-time, a state that cannot be measured by moments, movement, or memory. Those who have touched its essence do not describe it in steps or visions, but in contradictions that the mind cannot fully hold. This corridor is not a tunnel, not a location, but a suspended drift, a condition where unborn souls, untethered by body or purpose, remain in a kind of existence that cannot unfold. This corridor does not belong to the past, the present, or the future. It does not even reside outside those things. It is what remains when time fails to form. It is like the shadow of a timeline that never stabilized, the ghost of a sequence that never began. It is not before birth or after death. Those would still imply relation to time. Instead, it is the collapse of time's echo, a ripple that never touched the water. It cannot be found in ancient futures or forgotten pasts. Nothing ages there. Nothing begins or ends. The corridor simply is, without sequence, cause, or progression. Souls in this state are not waiting. They are not bound by waiting, because waiting needs time to stretch across. In every reality that can be seen or measured, there exists the force of observation. In dreams, in consciousness, in space, the act of seeing often shapes what is seen. But in the lightless corridor, the observer effect dissolves entirely. There is no subject to witness and no object to be witnessed. The structure of perception falls apart. Awareness doesn't land on anything. It doesn't illuminate or record. It simply hovers, weightless, aimless, unable to link itself to any reference point. Even if something were seen, there would be no anchor to interpret it, no self to say, "I see this." The concept of noticing breaks down, not because it is denied, but because it is never initiated. Souls adrift here cannot observe themselves or each other because there is no position from which to view. Color does not exist in this corridor, not because it is black, nor because it is white. It is not a realm of shadows or brightness. It is colorless in a way that transcends the idea of absence. Light and dark both require contrast to be known, and this corridor is without contrast. There is no spectrum, no depth, no light reflecting or hiding. Visual descriptions become meaningless. It is not a void. It is not a field. It is presence without form, a kind of existing that cannot be mapped through sight. One cannot even say it is empty, because emptiness implies the potential to be filled. This corridor is like standing inside the concept of neither, and even that fails to describe it. Despite the collapse of perception, emotion continues to move in this state. Feelings rise and fall, not attached to any story, body, or identity. Fear pulses like a cold wind through space. Joy flickers in brief bursts like static electricity. Despair hovers in thick clouds without names or reasons. These emotions don't belong to anyone. They are not caused by memory, event, or thought. They are simply states that pass through, unowned and uninterpreted. This is emotion without subject. A soul may drift into a wave of feeling without knowing why it's there, or even that it is feeling something. There is no I to feel the sorrow or the bliss. The energy of emotion simply echoes through the corridor, as if pieces of self-attempted formation and then dissolved again. Within this corridor, there are places of intense pull, energetic gravity wells. These are not physical black holes, nor are they metaphysical gates. They are fields of compression so dense that any soul drifting near them is drawn in and folded into a point of stillness. These gravity wells are not traps or destinations. They are pure silence, states where even drifting halts, where the energy of the soul compacts inward until motion stops, not from force, but from density. No awareness persists within them. Time does not stretch or loop there. These wells are the silent eye of a storm with no wind, places where the soul is reduced to such quietness that even its echo disappears. Some souls pass through them and return to the corridor. Others are compacted so deeply they lose all pattern. These wells are not punishment or healing. They are condensation points of pure energetic pressure where unshaped existence collapses into stillness too dense to transmit anything. No movement in this corridor is linear. Nothing unfolds. Nothing repeats. The drift is not travel. It is not stasis either. It is a kind of float without destination or origin, like particles inside a dream that does not belong to anyone. In this state, nothing is forgotten because there is no remembering. Nothing is hoped for because there is no will. Thought does not guide and desire does not rise. Identity itself never anchors. Souls here do not question why they are there, because questioning requires the shape of a thinker. The lightless corridor is not a holding space, not a testing ground, and not a transition. It is a non-temporal drift of non-subjects inside a presence that neither grows nor fades. And yet it exists, not in space or time, but as the leftover condition when sequence, identity, and will all fail to form. It is not emptiness, not silence, not void. It is the full presence of unshaped being, stretched across a corridor that has no length, no entrance, and no end. Chapter 6. The Interference Codes That Blocked Their Birth. There are moments so brief, so silent, that entire existences can be decided within them, yet no one sees them happen. Chapter 6 reveals a delicate and hidden layer of reality where certain souls are blocked from entering life not because they were lost, but because they were stopped. These souls never made it to the physical world, not by accident and not by personal failing. They were met by codes of interference, specific patterned disruptions that halted their descent into form. This blockage was not the result of inner resistance or soul choice. Instead, these were external rejections built into the systems they tried to enter. One of the most persistent forms of interference is known as genetic block programming. In this case, entire bloodlines carry a vibration that subtly dissolves or resists certain soul frequencies. The bloodline may look perfectly normal from the outside. The family may appear healthy, even loving. But encoded within the energy of their DNA is a silent message that rejects specific soul types. These frequencies don't attack or expel the soul in any obvious way. They simply don't provide a stable landing. The soul arrives and finds no resonance point, no bridge. It cannot bind itself to the forming body. It's as though the signal says, "This house is sealed to you." This isn't a decision made by the parents or the soul itself. It is a pre-coded rejection held in the genetic field, sometimes stretching back hundreds of years. The reasons for this programming are not emotional or personal. They are structural. The soul meets the code, and the code denies alignment. Sometimes the blockage comes not from the body, but from the unseen lineage that surrounds it. Ancestral gatekeepers are not symbols or metaphors. They are real presences that act like guardians at the doorway of a family line. In rare cases, these ancestral forces intervene and prevent a soul from entering through their bloodline. They do this not out of malice, but out of recognition. To them, the incoming soul may pose a disruption too strong for the timeline they oversee. They sense instability in the surrounding reality, unstable futures, volatile emotional networks, or unresolved energetic burdens that might fracture further if this soul enters. So they hold the gate shut. These gatekeepers do not explain their reasons. They act in silence, in moments before anyone is even aware conception has tried to occur. Their denial is not a punishment. It is a boundary enforced by intelligences that operate beyond time, but within blood memory. In other cases, the blockage has no spiritual signature at all. It comes from the environment itself. Artificial field interference has become increasingly common. Certain geographic areas are saturated with chaotic electromagnetic fields. These fields, generated by human technologies, create a layer of noise that can confuse or disrupt the early anchoring of a soul into the body during the first moments of gestation. When the soul tries to link to the forming embryo, it needs a certain level of stillness and clarity in the surrounding field. But when the air is full of static, dense waves of non-natural frequency, the linking process misfires. The soul's signal is scattered. Its energy begins to imprint and then fragments. The result is a failed entry, not due to a flaw in the soul or the parents, but due to noise. These artificial fields don't directly attack, they distort, and in distortion, precision is lost. Without precision, the soul cannot seal itself into form. There is a moment so brief it cannot be captured. The collapse point of choice. This is the instant when a soul either fully enters the human timeline or dissolves back into the waiting space. It is not a decision the soul makes slowly. It happens in a flash, at the border between intention and embodiment. What the book reveals is that this point is not always left unguarded. There are forces, non-human in origin, that sometimes intervene at this split second and cause disruption. These forces do not operate out of personal vendetta. They act through codes, patterns, and field manipulations. If a particular soul's entry would activate timelines or awaken networks that threaten their structures, they may intercept at this fragile moment. The soul feels a strange twist, a disturbance right at the edge of merging, and it reverses without knowing why. The body may continue to grow briefly or dissolve, but the soul never enters fully. The interference wasn't physical. It was patterned, precise, and placed directly at the juncture where choice collapses into embodiment. Lastly, there exists a more deceptive form of interference. Conception misdirection. This occurs when the energetic configuration of two individuals creates what looks like an invitation to a soul. The pairing, through their union, emits a signal that mimics readiness. It draws in a soul with the impression of welcome. But when the soul arrives at the final gate, it finds no door. The pairing created a false corridor, a simulation of invitation. The energetic conditions promised something they could not sustain. Often this happens when the emotional or spiritual alignment of the parents is unstable, but temporarily sinks during conception. The sink creates a temporary window, but once passed, the window closes and the pathway collapses. The soul, having responded to what seemed like a valid invitation, arrives only to be turned away at the last threshold. There is no malice here, no rejection with judgment. It is a misfire of signals, truth appearing, then vanishing. The soul feels not abandoned, but confused, drawn to a beacon that had no base. All of these patterns, the genetic blocks, the ancestral guards, the electromagnetic noise, the targeted disruptions, and the false invitations, operate from outside the soul's will. The interference codes are not personal in the way humans often think of rejection. They are mechanisms, some ancient and some newly formed, that filter what enters the human world. These filters do not ask permission, and they do not explain themselves. They act quickly, quietly, and often leave no trace. But their effect is profound. They stop a soul's birth before it ever touches time, not through accident or delay, but through denial, structured into the very pathways that connect one world to another. Chapter 7. The Echo Births That Were Mistaken for You. There are some people who carry within them a presence they cannot name, a sense that something lives behind their thoughts, something silent but persistent. These individuals walk through life shaped by an influence that does not belong to them, but moves through them. The book describes this strange condition as the result of echo births. Souls that never entered the world fully, yet left their mark during the delicate process of incarnation. These unborn echoes did not become people, but their impression remained. Some of these impressions became tangled with the souls who were born, creating a blend that was never meant to exist. It is not possession, and it is not shared identity. It is something far more subtle. It is an invisible echo that alters the path, perception, and inner voice of the person it haunts. At the moment of birth, the veil between dimensions is thinner than we imagine. In some rare cases, two soul signatures arrive at the same threshold, one fully intended to enter, the other merely passing through, drawn by familiarity, memory, or resonance. As the body forms, only one soul merges with it, but the other does not leave cleanly. There is an entanglement, a residue that clings to the forming self. This is not always noticed, but it is deeply felt. The result is a split in identity, not one that fractures consciousness, but one that colors it. The living person may feel they are carrying a second layer to themselves, a soft interference that cannot be traced. They may speak or think in ways that feel foreign to them, even if they appear natural from the outside. This split is not trauma-based. It is energetic confusion rooted in the shared doorway that was never fully closed. One of the most misunderstood effects of this phenomenon is the phantom twin, a presence that shadows a person's life not through biology, but through vibration. In some cases, a person may feel they were supposed to have a sibling who never arrived. They might speak of an invisible friend during childhood, or feel an unexplained sense of loss when alone. Yet no medical or family record supports the idea of a twin. That's because the twin wasn't physical. It was an unborn echo, one that arrived at the same time but didn't manifest a body. Still, it lingered. It may follow the living sibling through life, not to harm them, but because the vibrational tether was never fully cut. This presence may sometimes push thoughts, emotions, or longings that don't match the person's known experience. There may even be moments where the individual feels they are watching themselves from within, as if part of them is not quite rooted in who they are. This leads to a strange merging in the subconscious mind. Ideas, fears, or deep personal beliefs may emerge that have no clear origin. A person might hold a moral stance they never consciously formed, or carry a fear of water, darkness, or sound that cannot be traced to any memory. These expressions can be the silent voice of the echo, the unborn residue pressing itself through the living soul's mind. It is not an invasion, but a confusion of currents. The echo didn't enter the body, but it did leave a fingerprint on the mental and emotional field. Over time, these impressions can begin to feel like core parts of the self, even though they are not. They are remnants of a soul who never lived, projecting through one who did. This can lead to a lifetime of misalignment, where the person feels at odds with themselves and doesn't know why. There is also something called the missing name sensation. This is not about disliking your name or wanting to change it. It is deeper. It is the feeling that your name does not belong to you at all, as if it were assigned to the wrong person. Some people feel this from childhood, sensing that their name vibrates in the wrong direction, that it calls a being that is not them. Others experience it later, after an emotional event or identity shift. This sensation is often a sign that the soul they carry isn't the only one being addressed when that name is spoken. The echo hears it too. And in that shared recognition, confusion arises. The name was meant for one soul, but the echo, though silent, is still connected to the same field of identity. The result is a quiet split in personal resonance. The living person feels incomplete or mislabeled, as if waiting to remember a name that was never given. Another strange phenomenon tied to echo births is the emergence of untriggered memories, emotional responses that appear with no logical cause. A person might feel sudden grief around their birthday or anxiety when entering a new phase of life. These emotions do not belong to their timeline, and no amount of therapy or reflection uncovers a source. That's because the feeling doesn't come from them. It comes from the echo, still connected to the timeline they almost entered. These echoes don't live full lives, but they still interact with the energy of the world they brushed against. Birthdays, anniversaries, and transitions are moments when timelines bend slightly, when memories, even unclaimed ones, can bleed through. The echo may still hold grief for the life it never lived. It may release that grief through the person it clings to. The individual then feels loss that cannot be named, a sadness that tastes like it belongs to someone else. The people affected by echo births may go their entire lives without knowing why they feel dislocated, haunted, or burdened by something they can't describe. It is not imagination, and it is not emotional damage. It is the residue of a soul that came close to life but never entered, yet still clings to the field of one who did. This contamination is not evil, and it does not seek to take over. It simply exists in a place it cannot complete. Its presence shapes identity from the shadows, distorting thoughts, emotions, and names without ever revealing its source. The result is a life half-shaped by something that was never meant to be there, not a full second soul and not a memory, just an echo that was mistaken for the self. Chapter 8. What happens if they finally incarnate now? If these souls, once blocked, echoing, or prevented, were ever to incarnate now, the results would not bring alignment or celebration, they would bring disruption. This is not because the souls themselves are evil or wrong, but because too much has changed. What was once compatible may now be incompatible. These souls have not been still. They have been adapting, evolving in spaces outside of embodiment. But without human grounding, their structure has shifted. If they enter now, they may no longer match the human energetic template. The mind, the emotions, the nervous system, they may carry frequencies that do not synchronize with our biology or psychic field. This mismatch would not be slight, it could be deeply destabilizing. These beings might have senses or instincts that humans do not recognize. They may process space or time differently. Their perception of truth, emotion, or physical form might function through strange filters. And when something too different enters a familiar system, that system wavers, sometimes collapses. It is not just about what they bring, it is about how reality itself responds to their presence. If these souls enter now, they may interfere with the flow of time, not intentionally. But their very presence carries unresolved timelines. Their birth would not be a clean arrival. It would be a merging of misaligned currents. That's how temporal misfires begin. Glitches in perception, shifts in memory, people remembering things that never happened, or forgetting what always did. These aren't science fiction ideas. They are ripples in the field of reality when foreign energetic codes are introduced. A single soul with a warped time path might slightly bend the moment around them. But if several arrive at once, that distortion could amplify. Cause and effect may no longer follow their normal rhythm. People might sense time folding in on itself, or reality repeating in odd loops. Entire events could vanish from group memory, replaced by strange silence or contradictory recollections. But it doesn't stop with linear time or perception. There is another layer to consider, the dream realm, that vast shared psychic space where symbols, metaphors, and subconscious communication take place. It is a fragile system, not often noticed, but always active. Most people do not realize how much of their emotional stability, their intuitive guidance, and their inner healing comes through the dream layer. It is where personal myths are formed and where archetypes organize the unseen. But this realm depends on pattern and coherence. If too many of these anomalous souls were to incarnate now, their presence could short-circuit the symbolic field. The dream realm is built on resonance. These souls do not resonate. Their codes might overwrite, fragment, or distort the core structure of shared inner imagery. Nightmares may spread across populations. Archetypes may fracture. Emotional healing through dreams may collapse. Without dream space coherence, people may lose access to their deeper self-mapping system. Meaning itself could become harder to sense. Even stranger is how these beings might express themselves once embodied. Their energy might not flow in the directions we consider natural. Where humans grow through light, they may grow through shadow. Where humans connect through affection, they may connect through indifference. These are called soul inversion symptoms, not in the moral sense, but in the structural sense. Their direction of transformation may be reversed. They might seek stillness through chaos or wisdom through destruction. Healing may occur only after deep internal breakdowns, not through harmony. Their love may look like detachment. Their empathy may feel cold. And this is not because they are broken, but because the systems they evolved in reversed the spiritual polarities we understand. They move backward through pathways we walk forward. If they walk among us, we may not know how to read their signals. And in misreading them, we might feel unease, even fear. That fear is not always conscious, but it runs deep. The human collective is wired to sense what does not belong. There are frequencies that the body resists, even when the mind is unaware. If these souls begin to incarnate now, many people may feel instinctively disturbed by them. Not because they do anything wrong, but because their presence quietly announces, "I was never meant to be here in this form." Humanity may react with a quiet collective rejection. Conversations may end abruptly around them. Eyes may turn away without understanding why. Children may cry without explanation. Animals may avoid. Social systems may subtly push them out, not through violence but through energetic exclusion. These souls would not be received. They would be absorbed like foreign matter, causing friction, dissonance, and immune-like resistance across communities. The rejection would not be personal. It would be global, systemic, unconscious. This rejection does not only affect the beings trying to incarnate, it also shakes the ground beneath those already here. When something enters reality that was never meant to complete this journey in physical form, the world itself reacts. Energetic structures that have supported life until now might begin to fracture. Social roles, relationships, and shared meanings could lose clarity. Some people may lose their orientation entirely, feeling ungrounded for reasons they can't explain. These aren't signs of transformation, they are signs of disruption. Not all change is evolution. Some change is contamination. And if the codes of these souls enter the physical grid now, contamination may occur, not through malevolence, but through incompatibility. None of this is prophecy. It is a warning, a structural map of what could happen if certain patterns are ignored. These souls have not been idle. Their delay, their blockage, their distortion has changed them. They are not the same souls that once tried to enter this realm, and the world they would enter is not the same world they once approached. Both have transformed apart from each other. Reunion would not be a completion, it would be a collision, and that collision may not be visible, but it would be deeply felt. At the level of dreams, timelines, bodies, and emotion, it would pulse through everything. Those who feel the ripples might not know what is wrong, only that something has arrived that doesn't fit, something that stirs the invisible structures beneath the visible world, something that reminds reality of what it once rejected, and now might mistakenly let in. Congratulations, you've completed the entire audiobook. If this resonated with you, that's not by accident. If you like this, it means it activated something in you. That spark was real. If you share this, you become the signal that others were waiting for. You pass the code forward. If you subscribe, you anchor yourself to the deeper currents, because more is coming that you were meant to find. So, like it if it shifted you. Share it if you know someone else needs to hear it. Subscribe if you're ready to go even further. Your frequency just changed, and now the algorithm will follow.